The box was small, maybe the size of a shoebox, dark walnut wood, worn smooth at the edges, 3 brass locks across the front, and a piece of yellowed paper taped to the lid. My sister found it first, shoved in the back of Grandma Margaret's closet, behind 40 years' worth of winter coats and mothballs. The note said, "Open only when you're ready to understand." That was it. No explanation, no key, just those 8 words in her shaky handwriting. We'd been cleaning out her house for 2 weeks. Grandma had passed 3 months earlier, right after her 87th birthday. The whole family knew it was coming. She'd been getting weaker for years. But somehow, we all thought we'd have more time. Isn't that what we always think? I'm standing there in her bedroom, holding this locked box, and I realize I don't know if I'm ready. Ready for what? What could an 87-year-old grandmother possibly be hiding that required 3 locks and a cryptic warning? My brother Tom wanted to bust it open right there. "She's gone," he said. "Whatever's in there, she wanted us to find it eventually." But something stopped me. Call it instinct, call it respect. I don't know. I just felt like if we were going to do this, we needed to do it right. We found a locksmith in town. Guy named Eddie, who'd been doing this for 30 years. He took one look at those locks and whistled low. "Your grandma didn't want anyone getting in here easy," he said. "These are custom. Probably had them made special." It took him 40 minutes and 3 different tools. When that 3rd lock clicked open, I swear the whole room went silent. My sister, my brother, Eddie the locksmith, even the afternoon light coming through Grandma's lace curtains seemed to pause. I lifted the lid, and that's when our entire understanding of Margaret Rose Hayes, beloved grandmother, widow, retired elementary school teacher, member of the Presbyterian Church for 60 years, completely fell apart. The first thing I saw were photographs. Not family photos. We had thousands of those already sorted and divided up. These were different. Black and white, professional quality, studio shots from the 1940s and 50s. And every single one was of a woman who looked exactly like my grandmother. Same eyes, same smile, same delicate hands. But the woman in these photos? She wasn't Margaret Hayes. The name on the back of the first photograph read Vivian DuPont, 1947, Chicago. I must have stared at that name for a full minute. Vivian DuPont. I'd never heard it before. Not once in my entire life. Not at holidays, not in family stories, not in the genealogy research my cousin did 3 years ago that traced our family back to the 1800s. Under the photos, there were letters. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all addressed to Vivian DuPont, all sent to a Chicago address I didn't recognize. My sister picked up one of the envelopes. The postmark said July 1952. She pulled out the letter inside, 3 pages, handwritten in blue ink, signed by someone named James. She started reading out loud. Her voice cracked on the second paragraph. "My dearest Vivian, I count the hours until I can hold you again. These weeks apart feel like years. You asked me if I was certain about what we're doing, about leaving everything behind. I've never been more certain of anything. When I'm with you, I finally know who I'm supposed to be." Tom grabbed another letter, then another. They were all like that. Love letters. Passionate, desperate, real. And every single one was addressed to Vivian DuPont, this woman who had my grandmother's face, but apparently lived an entirely different life. But here's the thing that made my hand shake as I kept digging through that box: the dates. These letters spanned from January 1946 to 1958. We knew Grandma's history during those years. She met her grandfather, Robert, in 1945. They married in 1946. My father was born in 1948, Uncle Steve in 1950, Aunt Linda in 1953. This James person was writing love letters to Vivian during the same years Grandma was supposedly living a quiet life as a young wife and mother in rural Ohio. None of this made sense. Unless...
"Oh my God," my sister whispered. She was holding a marriage certificate. Official, embossed seal, everything. Vivian Claire DuPont and James Michael Thornton, married June 3rd, 1947, Cook County, Illinois. My grandmother, or whoever she was, had been married twice at the same time. We sat on Grandma's bedroom floor for 3 hours that day, going through every single item in that box. Birth certificate, Margaret Rose Walsh, born in 1937 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That matched what we knew. But then there was a second birth certificate. Same person, same date, different name. Vivian Claire DuPont, born in 1937 in Detroit, Michigan. 2 birth certificates, 2 identities, 1 woman. The letters told a story. James Thornton was an architect, successful, based in Chicago. From what we could piece together from old letters and documents, Vivian met him at some kind of exhibition in Cleveland. He was visiting from Chicago on business. By all accounts, they fell in love instantly, the kind of love that makes people do impossible things. So she created Vivian DuPont. Think about that. This 20-year-old mother somehow managed to construct an entire second identity, fake documents, a backstory, a whole separate life. The journals made it clear this wasn't easy. She was constantly terrified of being caught. There were close calls, friends of Robert's who'd been in Chicago, near misses at train stations, letters almost delivered to the wrong address. But she pulled it off. For 7 years, she maintained both lives without either side discovering the truth. We found expense ledgers. She was meticulous. Every dollar accounted for. She worked part-time jobs Robert didn't know about. Seamstress work, typing, small things that gave her cash she could use for train tickets and to support her Vivian life. James paid for everything else, the apartment, the clothes, but she insisted on paying her own way to Chicago, some kind of principle. Some need to not be completely dependent. The double life ended in 1958, abruptly, completely. The letters from James stopped in March. Just stopped. No explanation in the box, no final letter, nothing. But we found a newspaper clipping from April 1958, Chicago Tribune, obituaries. James Michael Thornton, 42, beloved architect and city planning consultant, died April 3rd following an automobile accident on Lakeshore Drive, survived by his mother, Catherine Thornton, and sister, Elizabeth Marsh. No wife listed, no children, just those 2 relatives. Vivian, Margaret, whoever she was, didn't even officially exist in his life. She couldn't go to the funeral, couldn't grieve publicly, couldn't claim any connection to the man she apparently loved desperately for 7 years. The journal entry from April 8, 1958, was 1 sentence. "I buried Vivian today. May she rest with James." After that, the journal stopped. The Vivian DuPont identity disappeared completely. Margaret went back to being just Margaret, permanently. But here's what got me. Her life after 1958 became smaller, quieter. She stopped working outside the home, stopped going to Cleveland for shopping trips, stopped traveling even the short distances she used to. By all accounts, for my dad and his siblings, their mother changed around that time, became more withdrawn, more focused on routine and safety. Uncle Steve remembered her suddenly becoming obsessive about them coming home on time, knowing where everyone was, maintaining strict schedules. Looking back through the therapy of hindsight and this box of secrets, it makes sense. She'd been living on the edge of disaster for 7 years, constantly managing lies, alibis, double bookings. The stress must have been enormous. And then James died, and the whole reason for taking those risks died with him. She had a breakdown. Not publicly, nothing dramatic, but privately, quietly. She fell apart and rebuilt herself into someone safer, someone who never took risks, someone who never, ever left Ohio again. My father was 10 when this happened. He never knew. None of the kids knew. Robert never found out either. He apparently died in 1982, having never discovered his wife's double life. We found one more letter in the box. This one was from Margaret to herself, dated 1959, never sent, just written and saved. I thought I could be two people. I thought I could have everything. James used to say I was brave, but he was wrong. A brave person would have chosen, would have admitted the truth and faced the consequences. I was a coward. I took and never gave anyone the whole truth. Not James, not Robert, not my children. I robbed everyone of the chance to know the real me, because I don't think I ever knew who that was. Margaret felt like a cage. Vivian felt like a dream, and I never figured out how to be someone in between, something real, something whole. My punishment isn't guilt, it's this. I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that I was loved by two men who never actually knew me at all.
We didn't tell the whole family right away. Tom, my sister Claire, and I sat on this information for 2 weeks. We kept meeting at Claire's house, going through everything again and again, trying to decide what to do with it. Do we tell our dad, Uncle Steve, Aunt Linda? Do we tell the cousins? Do we just rebury the box and pretend we never found it? Claire argued that Grandma kept it locked for a reason. Maybe she wanted it found, but maybe she also wanted to preserve the version of herself everyone remembered, the kind grandmother who baked cookies and never missed a school play. Tom thought we had to tell everyone. This is family history, he said. Good, bad, complicated, it's still ours. We don't get to decide what parts people know. I was somewhere in the middle, scared, mostly. Scared of what this would do to people's memories. Scared of rewriting everyone's understanding of the woman who raised my father. But then I found one more thing in that box. Almost missed it, stuck in the lining at the bottom. Photographs, recent ones, from the 2010s. My grandmother, in her 80s, sitting at her kitchen table, looking directly at the camera with this expression I'd never seen before. Not happy, not sad, just clear, honest. And on the back, in her handwriting, for my grandchildren, so someone knows the whole truth. That decided it. We told my dad first. Just the three of us in Claire's living room, with the entire box spread out on the coffee table. He cried. My 65-year-old father sat there and cried for an hour. Not from betrayal, not from anger, from grief. I always knew something was wrong, he said. When I was a kid, I knew Mom was sad about something. I used to ask her and she'd just smile and say she was tired. I spent my whole childhood thinking I'd done something wrong, that maybe she didn't really want us. Reading those letters, seeing the evidence of how much Margaret sacrificed or how much Vivian gave up, gave him a different story. Not a better one, necessarily, but a more complete one. She was trapped, Dad said. By her own choices, sure, but also by the times, by what was expected, by what was possible for women back then. She found one person who made her feel alive, and she grabbed onto that the only way she knew how. We told the rest of the family at Thanksgiving. Everyone. Spouses, adult grandchildren, the whole extended clan. It went better than expected, and worse in ways I didn't anticipate. Uncle Steve was angry. She lied to everyone, to Dad, to us, for decades. He didn't speak to any of us for 3 months. Aunt Linda surprised us. She said, good for her, just like that. Good for her for finding something that made her happy, even if it was complicated, even if it hurt. She deserved to feel loved. The cousins had mixed reactions. Some were fascinated, some felt betrayed on behalf of our grandfather, some just felt sad for everyone involved. But here's what I didn't expect: the stories that came out afterward. Aunt Linda admitted she'd found letters from a man who wasn't our grandfather once, 20 years ago, but had been too scared to ask about them. She'd convinced herself she'd misunderstood. One of my cousins shared that her therapist had been helping her work through grandmother issues, this sense that Grandma Margaret had always been emotionally distant. Now she understood why.
My dad started talking about his childhood differently, remembering moments that made more sense now. The time his mom disappeared for 3 days when he was 8 and came back different. That would have been right around when James died. The way she never wanted to talk about her life before marriage, the careful way she kept everything separate and controlled. 6 months after we opened the box, I went back to Grandma's house. We hadn't sold it yet, the market was slow, and honestly, none of us were ready to let it go. It still smelled like her lavender sachets and old books. I sat in her bedroom where we'd found the box, just sat there, trying to understand. Here's what I think I figured out. Margaret wasn't a villain. She wasn't a hero either. She was a scared 17-year-old who made choices she thought she had to make, and then spent the rest of her life trying to live with those choices. She loved Robert, maybe not the way she loved James, but in her letters to her sister, she talks about him with genuine affection. He was kind to her, good to the kids. He gave her stability and safety when she desperately needed both. But James saw Vivian, the woman Margaret might have been if she had different options, if she'd been born in a different time, if she hadn't gotten pregnant at 17 and derailed every plan she might have had. So Vivian got to be sophisticated, educated, carefree, all the things a poor Catholic girl from Pittsburgh in the 1930s never got to be. So Margaret created her, borrowed train fare, and built an entire alternate life where she could breathe. Was it selfish? Absolutely. Was it understandable? I think so. Was it fair to Robert, to the kids, to James? No, probably not. But I also think about what the alternative would have been. Margaret stuffing down every dream, every desire, every piece of herself that didn't fit the acceptable mold. Margaret slowly disappearing into depression and resentment. Margaret teaching her daughter that women don't get to want things, don't get to choose, don't get to be whole people. Maybe the double life was the only way she could survive. Maybe Vivian existing for those 7 years meant Margaret could function for the other 53. I found myself thinking about my own life, the parts of myself I hide at work, the version of me my parents see versus the version of my friends know, the masks we all wear to get through the day. Grandma just took it further, built entire identities instead of just shifting personalities. But maybe we're all doing versions of the same thing, fragmenting ourselves to fit into the spaces available to us. Here's the other thing. Reading those letters from James, I saw my grandmother's intelligence in a way I never had before. She was sharp, funny, opinionated. The Vivian in those letters had read Hemingway and Fitzgerald, had opinions on architecture and city planning, argued about politics and art. None of us knew that person. She never let us see her. What a waste. What a terrible waste of a brilliant woman who never got to be fully herself with anyone. 3 things happened in the year after we found the box. First, Uncle Steve came around. He showed up at my house with a bottle of wine and said, "I need to tell you something about Mom." Turns out, when he was 16, he'd snuck out one night and seen his mother crying in the kitchen, looking at a photo of a man who wasn't our grandfather. He never asked about it, just pretended he hadn't seen. "I was so angry at her for keeping secrets," he said, "but I kept that moment secret for 40 years. I guess we all have things we don't talk about." Second, we found James Thornton's sister, Elizabeth Marsh. She's 92 now, in a nursing home in Evanston. Claire drove out there, brought the letters, asked if Elizabeth remembered Vivian. She did. "James loved her so much," Elizabeth said. "We all knew she was married, that she had children. Mother hated it, thought he was throwing his life away on someone who could never really be his. But James said some people only get one great love, and if he had to share her to keep her in his life, that was enough." Elizabeth told us James had a heart condition. He knew he was dying. The car accident wasn't an accident, it was a heart attack while driving. He left Vivian everything. His half of the apartment building, his life insurance, everything. But she never claimed it. We tried to find her for years. My mother hired investigators. Nothing. Vivian DuPont just disappeared. We figured she'd decided to stay with her husband. Tell her family she made him very happy, Elizabeth said. He died knowing what it felt like to be truly loved. Not everyone gets that. The third thing, we found Vivian's apartment. The building still exists in Chicago's Gold Coast, converted to modern condos now, but the same address from the letters. We went there, knocked on the door of what would have been her unit. The current owner, a lawyer in her 30s, let us in. We explained what we were looking for. "This is wild," she said, "but look at this." She took us to the bedroom closet. Behind the modern built-ins, there was old plaster, and carved into that plaster in delicate script, V+J, 1947, forever. Vivian had been real. She'd existed in that space. She'd loved and been loved there. We took a photo, added it to the box. I think about my grandmother differently now. Not better or worse, just more completely. She was flawed, deeply flawed. She lied to everyone she loved. She maintained a massive deception for years. She hurt people, even if they never knew they were being hurt. But she was also a woman trapped in circumstances she didn't choose, trying desperately to find some piece of joy and authenticity in a life that had been decided for her by other people's expectations. The box sits in my house now. We all agreed I should keep it. Sometimes, late at night, I look through the photos of Vivian, try to reconcile that sophisticated, smiling woman with the grandma I knew who wore